like I said, yeah, I like the adventure. I like trying new things. I like the reason I build things is I like the chance, or the opportunity to try something new. Like here, this looks like, oh, I build a lot of furniture, but I don't. I really, I built these three big ones. They took a long time. They took me um, over a year to, total. But they're, to me, that's just like everything. Like, oh, I'll try it. I'll try it. Let's see. We'll see if we can do it. Um, if I had more time, I would have, I would have done some more just because I do enjoy it. But um, it's the adventure, the challenge. It's always the challenge. I like to, like, I bet I can do that. Whenever I hear, like, I even, learning to cook. Like, I bet I can do that. And just every time, I always think that, yeah, I could probably do that. And not only can I, but I'm going to do it just to prove that I can do. So, in some sense, I'm a, what do you call, a jack of all trades, of no master of none. Um, that I just want to know I can do it. Um, so when somebody says you can do it, this is like the hike with Dan. It's the same kind of thing. It's just, okay. I bet I can do that. I'll figure it out. I'll try it out, and I love it. And that's why even like with my kids and with Sarah, connecting that way is always the best for me. Just figuring out, like learning to dance. I dancing with uh, Sarah and getting better at it. Like, yeah, I want the connection of creating it, uh, and that dancing in particular is something that stuck with me for quite a while, just because you're always creating again. It's brand new. Particular, I don't know if we've talked about a lot about the type dance that we do, but the the uh, Argentina tango, there's not a predefined, this is how it should be. You have to actually create it every time. And that's really resonated with me then, was the ability to, like, okay, I have to create it this today again, and it's going to be different because I'm not going to remember how I did it. That's okay. Um, I just like that. Well, I guess for me, um, I don't think I never felt like I wasn't innocent. I guess I always kind of had that um, happy. I very much had a happy childhood. When I think backward, um, some I think a lot of people look at what my story was, and they would think that, hey, it was difficult because I was adopted when I was given up when I was 5, and I didn't get my parents until I was 7. Um, but for me, I don't really have negative memories of any of that. And maybe I just block it or something. I don't know. It's possible. That's what, I know people have told me before that must be what's going on. But for me, I don't know. Like I said, I like life. I like what's going on. Change. I do remember being given up, um, which was difficult, but I enjoyed the people then that I got to meet, and so that innocence to it, I think, was already just kind of built in me. Um, that Yeah. So I remember my original um, parents, a little bit, a lot, uh, and I know that there's bad pieces of that for my brother and stuff, that what they remember, but for me, I don't. Um, And I know that seems kind of like maybe I'm ignoring the truth, but I don't feel like that. I mean, I'm 41 and I still don't feel like I'm negative about that.
Yeah.
So no, I always thought that was great. Like I said, for a couple of years I was in foster homes and I enjoyed them. I enjoyed them. It was kids to play with, and I liked that. I liked the parents that I got, the Sabrowskis. The Sabrowskis were really friendly. Um,
Were your siblings with you in the foster homes?
they weren't. So my brother. So I have a sister, Crystal, who's my oldest, and she stayed with my birth parents. Chris and me both got put up for adoption, and then Joe, who is my half brother, that I only really ironic. It's kind of funny because I remember Joe, but I only have one memory of him when he was a baby. Um, and then later in life, in mid 30s, I met him finally, and it was great. It was, it's extra, you know, uh, a brother you never had.
Yeah.
Chris and I got adopted together, but we weren't in foster homes together. So for those 2 years, we'd visit each other and stuff occasionally, but they kept us in different. He was in the.
They split you up.
Yeah, they split us up. Um,
Um,
and two of them, or one of them is like the one that I grew up with. So Chris and I, we grew up through high school and everything. So closer in that sense that we just had more experiences together. Um, Crystal, I didn't meet again until I knew her until I was 7, but I didn't meet her again until I was 35 or so. So that was a big gap of not having a sister kind of thing. Um, yeah, and then Joe, same thing. Once I met Crystal, she helped me meet with Joe. Later in life, I got another brother and a sister, and it was cool coming back and finding Crystal. Like I said, I only had one memory of Joe, but for Crystal, I had several memories as my old sister. So it was very cool to come back and meet her again and stuff like that.
Are you guys still in relationship right now?
Oh yeah. So actually, I talked to both of them last week. So
Oh, very cool.
I'm not the best brother for staying connected. That's Chris is really the one who does a good job of that, kind of making sure that everybody stays engaged. Just for me, for any relationship, it's difficult to build relationships, and especially when they start to get extended into other states, stuff like that. It's hard for me to keep those connected, which is where somebody like Sarah is great because she helps me maintain those relationships that I really do need. It's just I'm not great at it. My mother, she died about 5 years ago, I think, and I only had one memory of her, which was the one with Joe. So I remember the three of us. Um, so that's all I had of her. For my dad, my parents had gotten divorced, and he had taken care of us. So I have some memories of him, but not a lot. It was more that I remember being home with my sister and my brother, and that's most of my memories before 5, or kind of hanging out with them, doing different activities with it. Like I actually remember making ice cream with them, and they had me sitting on the ice cream maker while it's running. I'm spinning around it. So I remember that kind of stuff with them,
That's cool.
which was great.
Where was this?
Portland.
Portland.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Portland. Although it's funny because when people ask, oh, where did you grow up? And you're like, well, it's Portland until I was 7. But honestly, when you're 7, do you know where anything is? I didn't know where anything was. So when I went back to Portland finally, it was like, to me, it was brand new. I hadn't been in any of this stuff. I didn't know where anything was. Even the Sobrowskis, from 5 to 7, like, I don't remember. I don't know where they lived.
Yeah.
I know I liked art stuff, building things, cutting things up, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I did a lot of that kind of stuff before 7. The Sobrowskis, there was a lot of kids that were in and out of the foster home. And so honestly, I don't even remember all their names because there were so many that went through. But, I liked playing with them and stuff. I had my Teddy, which was my one of my few toys, because when you go off into a foster home, you don't have a lot of stuff that's actually yours. But one of the things that I really attached to, or I did, they gave me they'd let me go pick my own teddy bear, and the grandmother from the Sobrowskis, she made a little blanket for him. And for those years, for me, that was my best friend, because there was a lot of change of people, different kids and stuff. But doing the adventures and stuff with Teddy was huge for me. Having, I got, what do you call it? What's the pops? Pox?
Oh,
you get as a kid?
pox.
Yeah, chicken pox. I like wanted, it was, I remember it, and like I know most people would think of that as like a horrible memory, but for me it was like, oh, but my best friend was with me.
You got your teddy right there.
Yeah, so I totally remember, and I still him. Yep, he's one of the few. He is the oldest thing that I have. Yeah, and so to me it was like, we're in another adventure. Let's just enjoy it. And so, like, I can remember quite a bit from the chicken pox.
Yeah, the chicken pox.
But I don't remember it negatively. I just remember it as this is a different adventure. I got, I was watching the kids outside, and I wasn't allowed to go out, but that's okay. We sat there with our, with our blanket and staring out the window, and I don't know why. That's just kind of my way of dealing with folk, or dealing with adversity, I guess.
Yeah.
Is to see it positively, that like, okay, well, why hate it? Why hate it? There's no reason. It's going to be part of it. Just embrace it. I think that's been with me the whole time until like this last couple of months. It's been difficult.
Sure.
I've, my ability to deal with things pretty quickly. I can kind of logically understand what's going on and just be like, okay, that is what it is. There's no point in, worrying about it, because worrying isn't going to change it. So that's, no, you'll see as I go through, we talk about different stories. Very rarely am I negative, or am I depressed, or it's usually okay, I'll be okay with this. Yeah, like you said, even as a little kid, I would do that. for a long time, a lot of people kept telling me that you should care that these things happen to you, kind of thing. It's like, well, I care, but why would I have it put a stain on my life? Like, I don't need that. Like, I can enjoy life how it is.
Yeah.
So I can even remember it, like in the Sobrowskis, I can remember getting in trouble because you're a kid. You get in trouble. You stand in the corner. But I would go stand in the corner and then I would just start dreaming like, okay, well, I'll just enjoy this then. If I'm gonna go, if you're gonna make me stand here, then I'll just enjoy what we're doing there. Uh, Actually, even my parents, which the adopted parents, but I call my parents. I can even remember getting in trouble with my parents, and I would still be happy that we're like, okay, I'm gonna go stand in the corner, and now I'm gonna enjoy something different then. Um, I don't know.
Yeah.
I always liked life. I always liked the adventure. And I would say if I was ever negative just about life, it would, you know, it was not having that adventure. And, but most of the time you can always find that.
Yeah.
So to me, this is actually, Christmas is a great time to talk about this. As I'm never waiting for Christmas. It's got to be Christmas.
Oh,
To me, it's like I'm not rushing it. I'm enjoying the season. Like I like Christmas. I like being there. I like why would I want it to be over? As a matter of fact, a lot of times Christmas Day is almost um, bittersweet because the time the season is over. And to me, it was better to like just enjoy it. I like it, and so I want it to be I want it to be Christmas season more than I wanted it to to be Christmas, because it kind of ends, and I liked the process. I don't like the chair as much as I like the process of making it.
Yeah.
So going through and building it, I'm not trying to be done fast. Like the reason this chair took so long was I was just like I wanted it to be perfect every step, and I would just slowly go through and figure it out. Some of the things I had to remake just because oh that's not right. I'll do it again. So I think I was pretty patient
Yeah.
for most of my life, just because maybe not because I'm trying to be patient, but because I embrace the process itself. I just like that.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, Chris and I were different, very different. So in a lot of ways, we grew up together but separate. So we really didn't have very many things that we both did, and part of that is probably because we during that really the 7 whatever up through even younger, that I remember Crystal hanging out with me more than I did Chris at that point, and then we were kind of separated, and by the we came back, when I'm 7 and he's 9. Um, we kind of had different things to do, so we always got along great, but we didn't do a lot of this things together. Um, I mean, we would do family things together, like you would expect, but I don't know. We had just different interests, and it wasn't we weren't brothers that were or hating against each other or anything. Like we liked each other just fine. I like Chris just fine. We got on great. But if I try and think of like things that we did together, it was more family things that we would do. I remember playing Life and Monopoly and stuff, but it would be all of us playing, which my parents were also very engaged, so they kind of supported that kind of stuff. But like I can remember my parents put us in a room together when we first moved in, um, and they both got us radios, uh, to listen to at night, except for Chris loves country, which I don't like country, and I like talk radio, and so this is the kind of stuff that we would do where my dad would have to come and tune them perfectly so we have the same volume as we're trying to listen to it. Um, so we had a lot of that kind of stuff, but I don't really ever, honestly, I don't recall ever the two of us like fighting or something. We would play with the neighbor friends and stuff, so they'd have, different. Actually, one of the funniest things that ever happened between us when we first got adopted, it was within the first week or so. Chris and I were playing with dart guns, and the ones that stick on you, yeah. And he came running around a corner, and my dad was there, and Chris shot him right in the forehead. We never had a dart gun again. That was it. That was it. It was the first. Yeah, it was like right away we lost that. But my parents' house was great because there was a lot of kids, so there was around us that we could go play with, and we played. There was um, kids of different ages in this area, so it gave us both people to interact with.
Yeah.
So I'd say you probably see that most of the time we were with our friends and stuff and goofing around, but got along great. Um, and then, as high school came along, things definitely changed, just because what we were interested in kind of changed. And so we were, once again, we got along fine.
Yeah.
We just had different interests a lot. Um, but I would always say he was, supportive. I feel like we were, everybody knew that these were our brothers, and we were together in it, kind of thing. I do. So actually, going just a little bit further, I actually remember distinctly being given away. So I do remember getting in the in a park. Sorry, I'm losing the word.
Sure.
Parking lot.
Sure.
I remember where they gave me away.
Who was it that gave you away?
So at that time, it was the social worker. I remember them telling me what was going on, that like you're going away, blah blah. But I don't remember crying or anything about it. It was just at that point I had already, you know, it was just my dad, and then there was a period after that uh, where it was my grandparents that were trying to raise us. That's too much. They were old, so they didn't have the effort to do that. And so I remember being given away. Um, but
Do you remember being afraid?
no,
Okay.
no. So to me, it was just a matter of fact, like, oh, okay. I guess maybe I've already, switched teams so many times I can't remember or something. I don't know, but yeah, I do distinctly the parking lot and being told and what was going on and stuff, and then eventually ending up in the Sobrowskis. Um, so when after a couple of years and being with the Sobrowskis, um, I saw other kids go away and get parents and stuff like that. And my parents did a great job. They build a book for us to understand who they were with. They were what their life was like. So it was super exciting to me to see what's gonna happen, what kind of people they are, what's interesting to them. Um, they they lived in Colorado, so they flew out to Oregon, and both of us got time with them one on one. So they came out, and I remember, you know, when you're in a foster home, you don't really get a lot of choice on what's going on. But they said, "Oh, well, where do you want to go?" Well, I want to go to Chuck E. Cheese. Uh, and so that was,
As every kid should.
as
That's the
every
first
kid,
thought.
that's the first thing I want. Oh yeah, I want to do that. And it was great. I loved it. There's actually my parents in their house. They have a picture of that first day.
Oh, that's incredible.
And it was for me amazing,
Yeah.
because you're kind of told that that's that's the best thing. Like if you can get a parent, that's the best thing. So yeah, I got along great with them.
What was the switch like from Portland to Colorado?
I got a, it was good that Chris and I both went together because we weren't living together. He was still in a different situation than me. So it was great to kind of have somebody with me. So, my big brother kind of helped me out. Um, and, but to me, it was like Christmas for a long time of suddenly there are toys, there are my toys. And not that it's like I'm greedy, I've got to have them, but it's more of like, wow, this is different. This is different. It's not something I have to give away. I have to change. You know, you can start kind of understanding that the first summer, um, we got adopted right on Easter, right around. So we actually celebrate Easter for our family's anniversary, which was kind of cool.
Yeah.
So I remember, when the two of us first came together with my parents, and they brought Easter baskets, which was huge for us.
Yeah.
And that was, I don't know, it was felt right to me. It felt like we should be doing that. Um, Ended up breaking my dad's glasses like in the first week. He put them down in a table or in a chair, and I got on it and sat on them, broke them. Um,
Seems like.
oh, I loved it. Yeah, my mom spent that whole summer trying to teach me to read. I was a slow reader. Um, so she spent a bunch of time where we reading books and getting the rewards for reading your books and stuff, and
Yeah,
I
that's
liked
great.
it. Yeah. Mostly it was the neighborhood. So I mean we had lots of things that we'd go camping and stuff like that, but most days it was hanging out with kids in the neighborhood, and um, that was kind of new, having this like the same people staying all the time. Was cool. My parents right from the start had boundaries of you could be on this side of the house or of the street but not the other, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But they very quickly kept extending what my boundaries could be as I did it. I don't really recall breaking any rules like that. They said that's how far you could go, that's how far you could go.
Yeah.
And so it was uh, it was, I don't know. So adventuring was, playing, yeah, hide and seek, or there was friends who had, Nintendos or whatever their things they were at the time. Uh, that kind of stuff. We played board games and stuff, and um, yeah, I was the my parents were concerned that, at least for me, that I didn't have a lot of personal friends, like super close. Um, that for me, it was always like one person. I'd pick one person I'd kind of attach to. That's going to be my friend. Um, and so even in the neighborhood, there was different kids over different years where it was like, this is just I don't uh, I don't keep track of 10 people and making sure that they're all. That's just not me. So whoever it is that I'm hanging out the most, that just because that was my buddy at that time, whoever it
Yeah.
was.
So you're tight with a few people, but not like.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing is, I mean, even if you go back to or out to like high school, everybody loved me. I got along with everybody, but I would always have a friend that's the person. Um,
Hmm. That's great, man.
yeah, I don't know. My parents were concerned about that because they actually, after I got adopted, I had therapy, obviously, kind of thing, and it was always for friend skills, like how to build friendships and stuff.
Yeah.
And some of that, I'm sure. I mean, I'm sure they were doing it for a reason. Uh, that I'm sure they thought like kids should have more friends, kind of thing. It never really bothered me, but actually the therapy was great because it was an extra activity of going out with other kids and learning to build better relationships. But to me, once again, it was just another adventure. We'd go do cool things that I like doing. So, sure, I'll do that. You can put me out there. So, start. I went to Catholic school in middle school, and that's when I actually met my best friend, Brian, um, and we kind of started having adventures that way.
Yeah.
But his coincidentally were his parents were divorced, and I lived in one neighborhood. And then when we bought a new house, his mom lived right down the street on the other one. So it was like, oh well, that worked out well.
You stay close.
Yeah, so we actually had made better friends then.
Are you
Um,
still friends?
yeah, we're still actually. It's Brian and I are really interesting. It drives most people insane that we are. If there's an adventure, we're in,
Yeah.
like no question. A couple of years ago, I decided I wanted to do gold. That I wanted to go find gold. Just like let's figure this out. So we went to Nome, Alaska, and I literally called Brian, and I had not talked to Brian in probably 2 years. And I just called, hey Brian, I'm gonna go to Nome. You want to go? Yeah. Okay. The conversation was like less than 5 minutes, and next thing you know, we're in Nome. Yeah, we're all in. That was at least for middle school, especially high school. That was just how life was for Brian and I. It was just, okay, we're going to go do this. Okay, let's try that. What the heck? So we were all over the state. My parents were pretty, you know, liberal with us, going around and stuff. Brian had a car, and later I had a car. And, we'd go in January and decide we're going to go up into the mountains and go camping.
Yeah.
And it's like 2 feet of snow, but we're gonna do it anyway just because we can. I don't know. So he had that same kind of want to have adventures kind of thing, and we build things. We built a solar racer, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I learned this is why I learned a lot of this stuff at that time. I had some good teachers, one in particular, who did a lot of the shop, you know, metal skills and wood skills or wood skills and stuff. And I picked that kind of stuff. And Brian and I just attached to that kind of stuff a lot, building things. Uh, even at that point, like when my parent, neither of my parents are uh, builders. Somewhere I got that from, not from my parents. Uh, but like my mom, wrecked her car at one point, and Brian and I rebuilt it, and it was just like, oh, I bet we can do that. I figured it out. It worked. uh, so I think if I just look through even then later into being an adult, I always had a friend somewhere. I always run into a friend that likes to build things, and that's usually kind of
That's the connection.
that's the connection that I need. Yeah,
Yeah. The adventure,
yeah,
the challenge.
the challenge of it. Yeah, and like I said, it's not. I mean, it's nice to have the nice items and stuff, but
Yeah.
most of the things that I've built in life, I don't have because I wasn't doing it to have it. I was doing it to have the adventure.
Experience it. Yeah. That's great. Yeah. So what other kind of adventures did you and Brian go on?
Oh man, what else did we do? Um, well, the one of the biggest things we ever built was uh, he had a Land Rover that he was driving, driving around one day with his dad, and they found a pile of car parts that were clearly a Land Rover, and they went and talked to the guy, and the guy was really apparent. I wasn't there, but he was apparently pretty irritated that people kept asking if they could buy this pile of parts. But then he passed within a month or two after they had done it, and or they had talked to him, and they had thrown his business card in the pile, and he had just tossed it in there. And the person who was taking care of their
Yeah. You got
set,
to say. Yeah.
uh, called and said, "Do you want to buy it?" And so when right as we're starting high school, we bought that, or he bought that, and then we built from scratch. So every piece, we took it all apart, built it all out.
That's cool.
It was great. It was just good to learn. Now I think, how do I know how cars work? Because I tried.
Yeah.
I don't know. We just neither of us knew anything about it, but we figured it out. And even when you go back, Brian had a go kart, and we would work on it and tinker it. Actually, one of the things we used to do all the time was drive or walk through the alleys and look for old motors that people would throw away, and we'd come over and home and we would figure out how it built. We had no purpose for owning it other than we just wanted to know how to make it work. So we did a lot of that stuff. We used to, since we lived right next to each other, which was great. We'd come home from school and play video games and you know that kind of kid kind of stuff you'd expect. Um, yeah, we did stuff with explode. What do you call them?
Oh,
Fire.
like firecrackers.
Yeah. We had lots of adventures blowing things up in
I'm glad you
Marlborough.
still have all your fingers.
Yeah. Yeah. Accidentally caught Brian's foot or leg on one foot tire. So sorry, Brian. Uh,
Yeah, I'm sure he doesn't mind.
yeah. But it's once again, being out and doing something. We usually would go do something. Yeah.
One of the cool things was when I went to high school, my friend at that point, so Brian and I had known each other, we were friends, but then the last year of middle school, I went to public school instead of private, and so I had to meet friends and everything, and I made a best friend again, like I usually do, no problem. Uh, but then when I went to off to South, which is the high school I went to, my friend moved to a different one, and that's when Brian and I really kind of kicked it off because he had been in college, dang it, college, not college,
The Catholic.
Catholic.
Yeah.
He was in Catholic school, so he had continued through that one year, and when he came back, he didn't know anybody, and I knew people now because I had been off. I had been
You had a year
public,
before him. Yeah.
public, yeah. And so that's really, I mean, we were already friends, but that's when it really kind of gelled that we were hanging out all the time and that kind of stuff. I had a lot of activities. I like, just as I do. So all of high school, I shot. I used to shoot at the school every day. Uh,
What were you shooting?
22s.
20. Okay.
Yeah.
Rifle? Did they have like a gun?
They had a range inside this high school.
Wow.
Yeah.
Could you imagine that nowadays? There's no way,
Yeah.
man.
Actually, twice I competed at the Olympic Center.
Wow.
I got third in state.
That's incredible, man.
Yeah.
And this is for long range like target practice.
Yeah. Yeah. So they had a JROTC program, and for me the shooting, I just loved it. The challenge of it, and the thing and it's kind of with everything else. I actually really sucked at shooting. I just wasn't that good naturally. And so the team had 5 members, but only 4 got to compete. So you had to be the best, 4 in order to compete. And over time, over the years, I got better and better to the point where I was one of the people then, because I just kept putting effort into it. And so I was always really, really proud.
One of the cool things was when I went to high school, my friend at that point, so Brian and I had known each other, we were friends, but then the last year of middle school, I went to public school instead of private. And so I had to meet friends and everything, and I made a best friend again, like I usually do, no problem. Um, but then when I went to off to South, which is the high school I went to, my friend moved to a different one, and that's when Brian and I really kind of kicked it off because he had been in uh, college, uh, dang it, not college, uh, Catholic. He was in Catholic school, so he had continued through that one year. And when he came back, he didn't know anybody, and I knew people now because I had been off. I had been public with public, yeah. Um, and so that's really, we were already friends, but that's when it really kind of gelled that we were hanging out all the time and doing that kind of stuff. And I had a lot of activities. I like, just as I do. So all of high school, I shot. I used to shoot at the school every day.
What were you shooting?
22s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rifle? Did they have like a gun?
They had a range inside the high school.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that nowadays?
Yeah. Actually, twice I competed at the Olympic Center. Um, I got third in state. So yeah, I used
And
to.
this is for long range like target practice?
Yep. Yep. So they had a JROTC program, and for me the shooting, I just loved it. The the challenge of it, and the thing that, and it's kind of with everything else, I actually really sucked at shooting. I just wasn't that good naturally. And so the team had 5 members, but only 4 got to compete. So you had to be the best, 4 in order to compete. And over time, over the years, I got better and better to the point where I was one of the people then because I just kept putting effort into it. Um, And so I was always really proud of myself to be able to, you know, take on that challenge and win and eventually win. Um, yeah,
That's incredible, man. So third in state, and how old
yeah.
were you? You were
I would have
junior.
a junior, I think at that point. I think junior and senior year I competed.
So you had the
At state.
ROTC guys.
Yeah, those
Kind of.
friends, which wasn't Brian. So Brian didn't do that, but I did it. And that's around that time frame where I started realizing that I was going to like the military, and
Yeah.
I had a little bit of military history then with that. Um, but yeah, so that like I said, I always had lots of friends. Everybody liked me just fine, um, but I just didn't do a lot of effort making sure to build up those friends,
Sure.
those friendships. Uh, yeah. So for high school, then, um, Brian and I would build things, and then I would do, you know, ROTC stuff because I like that a lot. I did sports, uh,
What kind of sports did you play?
baseball. I like baseball and soccer. So mostly soccer was my sport. I had very short time of playing football, but I was in the chess club, and the coach didn't like me being late for
Mm.
chess, and I liked chess a lot, so I bailed out on football. I'm like, nah, I like chess.
Yeah, there you go.
So um, I like around that time. That's funny too, because I think just middle school time frame, my dad introduced me to chess, and it was a long time before I ever won at all. Um, it was really, I don't know, probably a year before I really was able to win anything. But I loved it, so I kept wanting to play all the time, and my dad wanted to play all the time. Eventually, it just kind of switched one day where I get it, and I was really good at it. Enough that in chess club, I was competitive right off the bat. Eventually, my dad didn't want to play anymore.
I know the feeling.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. So even for the rest of my life, I've played chess just because I just like it. Um, yeah. So that was part of that. Unfortunately, my grades weren't exactly a stellar. I was usually a C student, and not that I wasn't capable of doing the work. It just wasn't very challenging.
Yeah.
I I distinctly remember several of my math classes where I was that student where the teacher would say, "Anybody but Kendall, tell me what this is."
Yeah.
So I could do the work just fine. As a matter of fact, I would do a lot of them on the board for the teacher kind of stuff. But I'd still only get a C because I didn't want to do the homework.
Yeah.
And that was, if there was ever like uh, something between my parents and me, it was always me not doing my homework. It was just so challenging for me to do it, to give it away, or to do that work. Um,
Because you were bored with it?
I was
You felt like you
bored.
already knew
I was
it?
just bored. It was just so boring.
Yeah.
Which is funny because when I was in junior in high school, I did the starting
Oh, the running start?
jumping, yeah, whatever it's called. There's a different one in Colorado. I can't
Yeah.
remember what it was called, but I did
You
that.
go to college.
Yeah, I went to college instead, and I got A's. And for my entire college uh, experience, I always got A's because it went away from being focused about doing homework to just knowing the material. If you know the material, you're good.
Yeah.
I knew the material. One of the ironies of the whole thing is the only D that I ever got was in physics in high school. And then the very next semester, I went to and took physics in college, and I got an A. And it just showed that it was not, at least to me,
Sure.
that no, this is not my ability. My ability is to not do the homework, and I'm not good at doing that. It's just so boring to me.
Yeah.
But after that, like once I got through that physics class in the college, it was like, oh, I loved class. I love it now, and it just completely changed for me. Having that, uh, uh, having the goal be changed to something that meant more to me, which was, can you actually learn this?
Interesting.
So,
Interesting. So you go to Running Start for the last 2 years of your high school.
yeah,
Correct?
and I was in military then, so
So
actually,
you're also doing the JROTC.
actually more. So when I ended my junior year of high school, I joined the military. So I still had one more year. So I went to basic training, and I did that over the summer. So everybody else had their junior summer,
Yeah.
and I actually went to the military instead. Um,
And how old were you then?
17. So my parents actually had to give me a waiver to go do this. And so I went to.
And is this Army basic training?
Yep, I was in Fort Jackson, South Carolina. Um, and yeah, it was another adventure. I loved it. Actually, because I was already in ROTC, I started as a E3 instead of a E1. And it was, for me, it was really easy to do. I'm a pretty fit individual, so it was pretty, there wasn't any problems there. And with all of the JROTC experience, I already kind of knew how to march and that kind of stuff. And then I knew how to shoot because I was shooting every morning anyway. Uh, and so to me, I loved it. I loved basic training. I thought it was great. Um, and then when I came back, actually one of the kind of odder experiences in my life is coming back to high school, and you've been in the military now, and now all of a sudden you're back to high school. And I was straddling. Half of my classes were jump start, and some were high school still. Um, and once a month I had to go to basic training or to military stuff.
Yeah.
So it was really interesting experience. And of course,
Living kind of in two different worlds.
yes, yeah, and then I had junior and senior. I had a girlfriend for a couple of years, and between you know doing the normal high school kind of stuff and having my friends and going do things, man, I love everything about high school. It's just amazing. I love it, except for the homework.
Yeah.
I do just enough to get my parents, to be okay.
Yeah. That's incredible. So then so after high school, then you're an E3, or probably maybe
E3.
E4 at that
E3
point.
at that point, yeah. I
So
think
then you go straight into the Army then.
no. So it was National Guard. So
Okay.
National Guard. I don't know if you know how that works, but yeah. So just every one weekend a month. Um, and so I after high school immediately went to my advanced training, which was a helicopter uh, chief or crew chief for Hueys. And there's kind of a funny story about that one because I wasn't trying to join the Army. I was actually trying to join the Marines. But I really liked Hueys, just the helicopter.
Yeah.
That particular one, I don't know. There was just something about it for me that I had to be on that. And I was at MEPS, which is where they in process you, and I went to the for the Marines, your your score is there's an upper limit and a lower limit. So if you score too high, you can't have a job that's lower
Yeah.
because they're like, no, we need to save that for people who are, you know. So I had a really good score test, and they wouldn't let me be a crew chief.
Oh,
And I was like, well, that's what I want to do. And literally, uh, the recruiter for the army was like, "Oh, we'll let you do it."
yeah.
And then literally, I got up and I went over and sat down. I'm like, "Okay, I'll be in the army. Like, that's what I want to do."
Oh man.
But originally, I thought it was going to be in Lorraine or the Lorraine, yeah. And then it's funny because my son had a very similar scenario where he was thinking about the Marines and he ended up being in the army.
Yeah, that's funny. Like, kind of
Yeah,
following in father's
yeah.
footsteps there.
Well, telling him that it was like, you realize at some point the army is huge compared to every other branch. So if you really want to have opportunities, those are the most that's the most options.
Yeah, certainly.
So,
So you go into the army then, and you're serving in a reserve unit, or
National Guard, yeah,
Yeah,
same,
okay.
yeah. So when I came back, then I came back to my parents after the summer is over, um, and when I was there, um, I decided, yeah, I really like aircraft, so I went to a technical school to aircraft mechanic, um, which was called Colorado. I forget what it's called now. It's not around anymore. U.S. Dang it, what is it called? Anyway,
Through the military or independent?
no, independently. So it was it was outside of Boulder. It was close to where my parents were, and my parents, though, they wanted me to have the college experience, so they didn't pay for my college, but they gave me um, a jump start for having where you live, your dorm. So they gave me some funds to get started and stuff. But it was always going to be, if I wanted to go to college, I was going to have to do it, which I still appreciate that a lot. That I had a lot of friends whose parents paid for college or part of college,
Yeah.
and they never finished uh, because it didn't mean anything to them. To me, it meant a lot to me. So I was, working 40 hours and school at the same time. It was a lot of effort.
What was the job that you held?
Oh man, we haven't even talked about jobs yet. So
Sure.
when I was just jumping back,
Yeah.
when I was 9, my mom got me my first job, and I've never not worked since then. So my very first job ever was working at a repair spot for vacuums. So the guy would, people would take him in, and then he'd have me take them apart and clean everything, and then I'd put all the parts back in the box, and then he'd fix it. You could see where that would work great with me. Um, and so that was my very first job. And ever since, my parents always were, they said you had to have a job, but it's not like they had to force me. I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved having the job. And so, like, some summers I would have, 3 different jobs all at once. But I always, every, I always had at least one job going all the time. Um, yeah, I liked working. I don't know. There's something,
Yeah.
even today, Microsoft is, people comment all the time how much I like working compared to everybody else. I'm just like, why would you not want to enjoy what you're doing?
Yeah.
So, anyway.
Yeah, that's great.
So I tried to get, for my kids, I tried to do that as well as making sure that they have a good work ethic. Pays off.
Yeah, absolutely.
What was the
So
job?
you work, yeah, just so you're working yourself through college.
Oh yeah. So originally, let me think about this. There was a lot of jobs. The main job that I did through high school or through college was as a mechanic for a roof company. So they had a huge fleet of machine, cars or
Yeah.
trucks and stuff like that, and I did the maintenance of all that stuff. Uh, which is funny because if you think about it, I'm 18 years old, and they're trusting me to,
Make sure everything works.
yeah, including semis and everything. Like I was putting I don't know, I just figured it out. And I think just because through my entire childhood, I always did that.
Yeah.
I don't know, I'll figure it out. You just have that kind of spirit of, I can do it. It may take me a little while, but I'll figure it out.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's really cool.
and I think it just kind of stuck that I always felt like I could always fix anything if I wanted to.
Yeah. Wow, that's incredible, man.
Yeah, so I liked that job a lot. In college, it was a good experience.
How long did you do the Army National Guard for?
6 years.
Okay.
Yeah, so I had, let's see. Yeah,
Were
so
you E3 the whole time?
no, I made E4.
Okay.
I did not do amazing in my military experience.
Oh, that's okay.
Fortunately, I only got promoted once. Uh, I, let's see. I'll put a little bit of this structure around here because otherwise it won't make sense. Um, so I got done with high school. I went to my advanced training. I came back. I got my job as a mechanic, and I worked at Village Inn, which is like a Denny's kind of thing. So I did both of those jobs, plus the full-time college student. Um, it was only a 2-year program that I did in less than, it was like a year and a half because I just did it full time all the time. And I ended up getting recruited by Lockheed, and from Lockheed, then I ended up in Georgia with them. So they gave me that job. Um, and when I switched from Colorado's National Guard, I had to switch to Georgia's National Guard. Uh, so actually, I had 3 jobs at the same time because I had National Guard, the Village Inn, and the mechanic, plus school. I was really busy.
Yeah.
And then when I moved to Georgia, I switched, and they didn't have a aviation program for the National Guard there that I was in. And so they said I had to pick another job. Um, and I ended up picking infantry because, oh, well, I like hiking. That sounds fun to me, and I can shoot. I'm good at it, so I'll give that a shot. The funny thing was they right after they told me, yep, okay, you got your job, and you're going to Bosnia. And so 1 year from when I moved to Georgia, I moved to Bosnia.
So you were deployed to Bosnia.
For a year, yeah. So they told me in a year you'll go to Bosnia, but you have to go now, which was fine. Whatever, that's fine. But that helps you understand the time frame there. One of the funny things of that was when I was in college and I was trying to get a job. I was trying to get a job with Lockheed, and Lockheed I filled out the resume and everything, and they told me they gave me a letter back saying you don't have any experience, so we're not going to hire you. And then the same week, I showed up, in my coveralls as a mechanic in college, right? Because I'm going from one job to the next kind of thing. And I found out that Lockheed's recruiting people there today. I'm like,
That's great.
well, I want to go. And I'm like, and they said, well, there's one slot left if you want it, but you're covered in grease. Everybody else is wearing suits and stuff. I'm like, well, I didn't have the job anyway, so I'll try it.
Yeah.
And so I got to interview, and it turned out that the guy who was interviewing us was a mechanic for a Huey.
Oh, that's
Uh,
right up your alley.
I was like, oh, this is perfect. So we talked for an hour, and we didn't talk anything but helicopters the whole time. We just had fun. And I was the only person who got hired.
So you stood out.
Oh, yeah, I stood out even though I was wearing in my coveralls and everything. It was super funny.
And that's what got you to Georgia.
That's what got me to Georgia. Yeah, so they gave me, it's like 8 different options where they were like, here's different places you can try, because they had a lot of jobs that they were looking for. And I always wanted to live along the coast. So it's like, oh yeah, I want to live in Savannah, Georgia. That'd be great, right on the coast. Uh, Funny enough, though, in the time it took from them to sign the papers to when I moved there, the job shifted to Macon, Georgia, or Warner Robins, Georgia, which is in the middle of the state, not near the coast. So I ended up living in the middle of Georgia.
The old bait and switch.
Old baby switch, yeah.
Wow.
But that's then how I got out to, and that's how I ended up in Bosnia.
Yeah, so you switched to infantry,
Yep.
get deployed to Bosnia, and
Yeah.
you're serving in an infantry unit in
Yeah.
Bosnia.
Yes. Yeah. Which was, um, you know, it was an interesting experience. I'm super glad that I did it. One of the things that comes up a lot with military is everybody, likes to say that, thanks for your service and that kind of stuff. But I never felt like I did it for the country or other people. I did it for me. Like it was an adventure for me. I wanted, and so I'm always really weird for me when people say that, just because to me I feel like I'm cheating them or something. Like you didn't come, I didn't show up to help you. I showed up to help me because I liked it. I wanted to try it. Bosnia as a whole can be broken into 2 parts. One was the war itself,
Yeah.
and then the stabilization unit that happened afterward. So I was in the stabilization, so there was already, the conflict was kind of stopped in that sense. But Bosnia has a huge number of mines all over the place. That's how the fighting was done. So it's, kind of freaky being around all the time. But once again, for me, it was amazing. I liked it. I liked meeting all the different people. I liked the military experience of it. That was fun. I like even your free time that you have was a lot of fun. I would always, there was other bases that in your free time you could actually ride a bus and get to another base. Okay, if I haven't seen it, I want to go see it. Like, go see what it's like. I had a lot of friends that just sat around and played video games and stuff, but I would do some, but that's not me. What I ended up doing was doing more college classes, which was cool. I loved it because they set it up so, they'd give you videos and you would just watch all the videos and then take a test and then get the second set and do it, and then you get credit. So many times I got, in a weekend, I'd just be like, oh, I'm going to do astronomy, and this weekend I'm going to do nothing but get all those credits, in the weekend. And so fun. I
So
like.
you spent your time well, it sounds like.
I like to. I actually struggle not doing things. And it's been very uncomfortable for me to sit around and be relaxed. I always kind of want to be doing things. So as I've gotten older, I've gotten a little bit better at that. That it's like it's okay to be relaxed, uh, but you can tell just by the number of things that I did. You know, like I said, in that time frame, I was so busy with everything always.
Yeah,
And just I'm most comfortable then doing.
yeah, yeah. So the rest is a difficult thing for you.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I get it.
yeah. Even still, like I like playing video games, you know, but I need to do it with like Sarah because then I feel like we're doing something together,
Yeah.
and that's worth time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Whereas me just sitting playing by myself, I really struggle with that, and so I kind of need permission to be relaxed.
Sure.
So yeah,
Yeah, that's a hard relaxation is a hard thing, especially in the world that we live in today.
yeah,
It's a forced. It almost has to be a forced thing
yeah.
to slow down.
One of the other things was when I left for Bosnia, Zach was born while I was gone.
Okay.
So it was also interesting, you know, coming back and um, I went from, you know, high school to college pretty quick because it was a 2 year, and then going to the military and coming back, and now I've got a family. Like, wow, that was different. For me, the pieces where I feel most connected, um, you know, to to God as a whole
Yeah.
is actually being out in nature and being by myself. A lot of that, just
Yeah.
being quiet, where Matt, you know, you have time to ask the questions or get the answers. That really kind of helped me link everything together is uh, Galileo, not my dog, but the scientist,
Sure.
which is the name of my dog. The thing that really changed was a saying that he had that the Bible does not tell you how to go to heaven. It tells you, or sorry, it doesn't tell you how the science. Do you know the saying? Okay, there's a saying from where he says, basically, I'm just going to paraphrase that the Bible doesn't tell you how to how the stars move. It tells you how to get to heaven. That it's not they're not intended to be to the same thing.
Yeah.
And so his view was he was Christian for one of the biggest scientists ever,
Yeah.
right? And even even the Pope was against him and some of that, but the fact that he could separate that it's okay to want to seek the truth of both and have them both be true. You don't have to think that they're both the same thing.
The quote is, "The Bible shows the way to go to heaven, not the way the heavens go."
Yes,
so it won't explain reality as we see it,
yes,
but will guide us in how to navigate.
Yes,
what we're
exactly.
living.
Which is super powerful because for somebody like me, where you're looking at literal truth of things, when I'm looking for literal truth, then yes, I want to understand how things actually move. How do the science that actually work? And I don't need the two to work together. I can be okay. And I think once I came back from Bosnia, and then I found this quote, it really started to help. That it made it so, okay, if I really want to if you want to go talk to God, go to the mountains. You'll get it. you'll understand, you know. But if I want to understand, why the planets are the way, okay, that's good too.
Yeah.
And I don't have to, I don't have to fight with the two. That I can be okay with both.
Yeah, you can embrace the seemingly irreconcilable difference between the two years. Well, no, you can embrace the ambiguity of that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I think, when I go back and I look at stuff like, can you have a priest that is female? Why not? Like, that doesn't bother me. Like, it's somebody who, is being called and they want to do it. That's great. Go do it. Um, for some people, that's not okay, and that's okay too. That doesn't bother me either. I came back from Bosnia, and of the 5,000 troops that came back from Bosnia, I was on the first plane coming back. It's National Guard, so as soon as you get your gear back, a couple days, you're done. So everybody else is still in Bosnia, and we're done. And then the next morning when we got let go from National Guard was 9/11.
Wow.
I was the first troops to come back from Bosnia, and we were the only ones who came back. Everybody else got extended with. So that was a weird time for life for everybody. But for us, the entire military got called up except for us because we had just been released, and you can't call them right back. Yeah, so that was a real experience. But one of the things that was great for me, the job that I had in Georgia, they lost it. Lockheed lost the contract that I was on. But there's a thing called sailors and something. Anyway, it's a uh, thing that makes it so that they can't get rid of your job while you're away. Uh, because of your job.
While you're in the military.
Dan, you must know what this is.
What's it called?
I don't know what it's called, but you
Sailors
can't,
fail.
kick somebody's child away.
Yeah. So Lockheed said they contacted me and they said, "Tell us what job you want and it's yours. So just go find a job that they have and it's yours." And it was like, oh well, now I can move back to Colorado because Zach's over in Colorado in April. And so I'm like, oh, so let me just find a job up. There was a job for building satellites. I was like, satellites? That sounds right up my alley. So they gave me the job. I didn't have to interview anything. And so I moved back to Denver and started building satellites, which is, a lot of the technology kind of stuff that I do, how I, build robots and stuff. That's where a lot of that started because, there's just, the people that you're around then obviously are interested in that same kind of thing. But that's also how I ended up working for, NRO originally, and then NSA, and then CIA, and that's how I got started there. Because in order to have the job that I just coincidentally picked, you had to have a national clearance. Yeah. So I got a clearance just because I was the next guy. It was just dumb luck. And it ended up being great for a career because there's not a lot of engineers who are willing to have national clearances because they know what you're doing all the time, kind of thing. So people don't like that didn't bother me. Yeah, so that was great. So I, worked for Lockheed for 10 years, and in that time had Maggie as well. So now the two of us, or the two kids, and yeah, I don't know. We did a lot of things. It was fun when the kids were young. I was not good at day-to-day type being a parent, but I was good at setting up like huge adventures. We'll go do an adventure kind of thing. So Dad was always the one who made sure that it was going to be memorable. You weren't going to remember every day because that's just going to be the boring stuff that dads do.
Yeah.
But eventually, Dad will do something amazing this week, and we'll do something really cool. And they'll remember. But you were talking about kind of what changed, and what was hard. And then Maggie, I think, is 6 at that age. Yeah, and my wife decides she wants to go off in the army, and then later, says she doesn't want to be a wife. Even when she went to go off, I still thought, oh, she's just going to switch careers, kind of thing, whatever. And then found out that that's not true. And I ended up with 2 kids and by myself, and I had never really put a lot of thought into whether I was going to have kids in the first place. Like, yeah, I'll have kids someday, but because of all the, my life, just the way things happened with Bosnia and everything else, I ended up with kids. And then, and like I said, about the same age that I got adopted is the same age that my kids kind of switched their family dynamic, which was interesting. And that, for me, that kind of was a jolt that, okay, is this really what I want to do with life? Is this a good way to raise my kids by myself? That kind of stuff. And so actually made, we came back to Colorado because April had moved to Maryland. So we lived in Maryland for a couple months before we moved back to Colorado with just me and the kids. And my parents supported us and everything to figure out what to do next, that kind of stuff. My parents were always great that way. But I ended up starting a business, a toy store, which I think we talked about, which was kind of a time to rediscover what's really important for me, and it.
Why did you choose a toy store?
So at some point, I was sitting around. I was very unhappy at that point, very depressed, just because it was such a shock to me.
Yeah.
But I decided that that I needed something new, so that I could kind of re-jump or jumpstart myself. But I also needed something that would help my kids to go through this as well, because there's 3 unhappy people now all the time because they've lost their mom and she's gone, and I've lost my partner, and so I just decided we're going to do something different. We're going to do something that gives us something to do that's interesting for us. And so I had finished college while I was at Lockheed, and I decided that, I have all these skills from college to start a business. I might as well just do that. And so I started a list of different companies that I thought I could do, like I could make this work. And then I gave the list to the kids, and I said, okay, we're going to do one of these. So let's look at the different options and decide which one we're going to do. And of course, in retrospect, obviously a toy store was going to win. Should have thought of that, because what kid doesn't want a toy store? So we moved across the state to Manitou because there wasn't a toy store. So I drove all over the state and found kind of where I thought a good company or toy store would do, and kind of what the theme was going to be, and that kind of stuff that would make it successful. So it wasn't like what is it?
Willy-nilly.
Yeah, it wasn't that. I really put the thought into it and making sure I build a plan for the whole thing. And we moved down there and started a toy store, which was exactly what I needed it to be, and it was perfect for the kids. That they, you know, I was there all the time, so they had dad all the time. So I may not have two, they may not have parents and two parents, but they have one that's going to put a lot of effort into it. Uh, and when they went to school, the school was right down the street, so they'd get done and they'd come back. And it turned out, like Zach struggled a lot because he was a little closer with April than I was, and where Maggie and I were a little closer. So it was good that he had that support from other adults too. Um, and kind of the best years for him in school were where we were in Manitou because of that. So, that was I like to think that we made the right decision there because it was so so good for all of us.
Well, it definitely sounds like an adventure.
It was a heck of an adventure. Yeah, starting your own business is interesting, obviously, but the meeting new people there, having new support, picking a small town where I knew everybody. We knew all the owners of the businesses, which was great, which meant not only was I looking out for my kids, but my kids were looking out, with the other businesses and that kind of stuff. So it was very supportive. Yeah, we ended up just loving that town. Um,
How long were you there
we had the store for 3 years, but we were only there for 2.5-ish. After a while, kind of everything became stable, and we were moving into middle school for Zach and stuff, and I decided that, okay, we're doing good. We're doing good, but I really am an engineer. In the end, I need to be an engineer, and so we decided to. I had some concerns myself about the way my career was set up because um, I, I'm good at engineering, but I actually don't have an engineering degree. That's not. I have a technical degree. I have a technical management degree, so I'm supposed to be a manager, but that's not really I am. I'm an engineer, and I got somebody gave me the opportunity to go back to being an engineer, and so I decided to jump on that. Hmm.
So you went back to school then
No, I just had to. I just went back and got enough experience that people just believed that I could be an engineer because I could do it. I could do the job. It just didn't have a degree that aligned with it, which always really bothered me. And when actually later in career, when I went to Lockheed, or not Lockheed, Microsoft, Microsoft came out and recruited me and said, hey, we'd like you to come work with us. I'm like, well, that's great because I'm not actually an engineer, but if you believe that I am one, then I must be one. So that kind of drove my career a bit, just because I wanted to have comfort in the idea that yes, the right people will, I'll be able to keep doing this job. When I was doing the stuff around national security, a lot of that job, there's not a lot of people who can do it for various reasons. Obviously, technical capabilities, but also, you can only be a citizen of the U.S. So the number of people who you're competing against are pretty small. So I always kind of was uncomfortable of the idea that I was almost like I was posture. What is it called when somebody they believe they can't actually do it?
Imposter.
Yeah, I kind of had that feeling sometimes that, like, yeah, I make it in the NSA, but the NSA is not that big. They don't have a lot of people to choose from. So I felt much better once I got to go to Microsoft, and it was like, okay, this is the biggest company in the world, and if they're looking for me, then that's great. And so I think if you were to, if you look at you were talking about when things got broken, and then how did I get it back together? Um, first I wanted to make sure that my family was taken care of, and we got everything kind of back in a better position. We were comfortable and stuff. But then eventually I had to go back to being an engineer because I'm just an engineer. I have to build things. I can't, my toy store was over engineered like crazy because that's what I do. So I just keep building more things for it. It was an amazing toy store.
Toy store is still there?
It's not, no. So when I moved to DC, I still had the toy store, and I continued for another year. But every weekend, I had to do the toy store. So I do my normal job, and then on the weekends, I'd have to do re reordering stuff like that. And realistically, I'm never really I wasn't driven by the money, and so at some point it's like, why am I doing this? Like, it's not my, it's yes, it's my toy store, but I don't want. I wanted to spend the time with my kids and going and do things. So living in DC was great for the kids at that age because we went all the Smithsonian.
Yeah.
We were constantly everywhere. Once again back to adventures, right? So we were off and finding things. And at that time, the toy store and after, it really changed from me being um, a parent occasionally. It definitely was not good when they were 1 to 2. I was not a good parent. Not that I was mean or anything. It just didn't resonate with them. But by the time we got to the toy store and then later to DC, yeah, we were 3 pods of, or pieces of a pod. Yeah, just everything. I love being a parent with them. I like doing the stuff. It's funny because I'd say after that point, there was a lot of people look at me and would say, "Don't you need a break from the kids?" I never needed a break. Why would I need? They're my best friends. Like, no. Do you tell your friends, your best friend, you need a break? No, it's your best friend, obviously. And so, one of the things that we talk about with the kids all the time, or I do, I hate when I have to be the parent. Like, I will be the parent if I have to, because I'll be responsible. But I'd rather be your friend. So, yeah, and I think, there was a lot that went wrong with, my marriage and everything, obviously. But the fact that I got my friends, that was huge.
That's huge.
Sarah and I started dating 5, 6 years now, somewhere in that range. And this is, Sarah's not going to like this story, but for me, it was funny, meeting Sarah because she's very, very smart, but she's also very emotionally available. That makes sense. As a therapist, obviously, she's got good skills in that area, which I don't. Um, I kind of just ignore problems that I don't like. And so that we are a great couple because of that. I think we kind of balance each other out. That usually it's easy for me to just ignore problems and they'll be okay. I'll make them okay. I'm not saying that I'm going to ignore a thing needs to be fixed, but it doesn't bother me that it needs to be fixed. Kind of thing. The the biggest thing with Sarah was learning to to have emotional uh, connections with her. That not that we didn't have it, that it got much deeper than other relationships I had been in, where somebody actually you felt like they cared about you. They cared about, and then which then caused me to start to care. It wasn't just another, a friend who wanted to go have parties and stuff, but it started becoming, oh, this is actually somebody has emotional and skill. I wish I had a better way to phrase that, but that became a huge piece of, oh, I can actually uh, grow a lot. Everything else, if you think about what happened with my kids and getting divorced, I for me it was just I was just running, having fun, doing the life and building adventures and stuff, but I hadn't really put a lot of effort into um, making sure that somebody else also was healthy and that they cared and that people they felt like somebody cared about them and that kind of stuff, uh, which has been one of the more challenging things for me because obviously as Sarah likes to tell me, I'm not always the most uh, emotionally uh, mature person in that sense, just because I don't react to those kind of things. Um, but I've gotten much better at that, and so yeah, I don't know. That's gonna sound horrible
I
later.
know. No.
She's
It's
gonna
just real, but it's just real, and that's part of it. Is
yeah
just going, hey, opposites attract.
yeah.
Um,
The funny thing is, I wouldn't say we're opposites totally. There are obviously things that we do
things that are opposite.
we do opposite. Yeah, one of the things I really struggled with Sarah, was that she was very real in the sense she's not fake at all. She, you know, one of the things she doesn't like that I've told people this, but to me, it's part of the reality of it is, she she can be difficult for me just because I'm so happy go lucky. Um, and she real, I mean, she's a therapist. She sees real things and has to deal with that. And for the first probably 2 years or so, it's like I think I always felt like she's 80% amazing, and then I don't know what the hell to do with the people who are are the therapy type stuff where she's running into these things, and it just took me a long time to understand that there's nothing wrong. That's the reality. She deals with really difficult stuff, and the fact that she's willing to do that constantly, that is huge. Um, and I think after that point, that's where our relationship really started to change. That you know, if I was originally just looking at her and saying, you know, is it going to be fun to go hang out this weekend? That's all I care about. Sure, then she has to be a different person, right? But if I'm willing to support her, like that really changes everything. And I think being willing to be the support, that's, I guess I did that for my kids, but now for a partner, that was different. Well, one of the things that, uh, this is actually something I have several relationships ended because of this, that people weren't willing to go on the adventures with me. Um, and she always was willing to. It was like, one of the things that we've talked about recently is, she has to because that's me. And if she's going to be, in my life, then she has to be willing to go on those adventures with me. The same way now, looking at it, it's like, yeah, she wants to be a therapist, which means she needs, emotional support to deal with that kind of stuff herself. Great, then that's what I need to do as my partner. And so, I think one of you know, the best piece for me has been having an actual partner.
Yeah.
And I don't think that a lot of people understand what a partner really is when until you're dealing with this all the time, and you start to realize that, yeah, it's not that we go on adventures just like, I want to anyway, but it's also making sure that she's being supported. So it's for me, this is the uh, hardest thing with cancer is feeling like I'm leaving her.
It's incredible to know that she's the kind of person that runs toward hurt. She's not afraid of it. She runs towards brokenness to help. So it's really neat to see how God has brought you two together, especially in this season.
Yeah,
So you have someone who can walk with you through the mess of this.
yeah. And I try and do the same thing for her.
Yeah.
I try and make sure that, I'm taking care of her as best I can. But, as we get to the end, there's less I can do.
Yeah. And it's beautiful to watch where she can stand in the gap for you in those moments.
Yeah.
What would you want to say to her?
I don't know what I want to say to her. I love her. There's a lot of things up front I wish I had known. It wasn't really fair to look at her as 80%, 20%. That's not really what it is. So it's, I'm glad that she stuck it through with me. So I did get to meet her.
What would you want to say to your kids?
Proud of it. It was just a second here. One of my goals when I found out that I had cancer was to help them get to their next stage in life. And I'm super proud of them. Zach's had a tough life. I'm not exactly the ideal parent for Zach. He needed somebody set up a little different, but he made it. He's in the army, So, thank you. Second. He made it. He's still is Zach, so there's still going to be some issues and stuff, but I'm proud. Maggie, I mean, she's super proud of her. She's doing college on her own, just like I'd want her to. Where she's doing the adventure herself. So, and the fact, one of my proudest moments with Maggie, which she probably doesn't even know, but she, with all the stuff that's going on in Seattle and the country, and everybody's very anti-cops right now. Maggie didn't stand or didn't let her friends tell her that they shouldn't be a cop, that she shouldn't be a cop. she actually stood up and said, "No, I want to. If there may be things wrong, but I want to fix them." And the fact that she's 17 and able to think of that thing, that kind of impact is huge. You know, she's willing to put not her life in front for these other people who don't even want her help, but she understands. That's great. So I'm super proud of her.
What do you think they would say to you?
Zach would say, "Stop crying, Dad." Uh, yeah, I don't know. I've gotten some time here at the end to hang out with them, and I think they're still my best friends.
What do you think Maggie would say to you?
Um, Maggie will tell me that she's gonna be okay.
Do you think that's true?
Most of the time, yeah. I mean, she's a smart girl. She knows what she's doing. So I said I was when I found out how much time I had left, it was bittersweet that I would get to see them both become adults. We love each other, so I know she'd say thank you, just as I would. It's the really difficult part is that we were, it just felt like the world was right, and it's falling apart. I feel like my kids, they got to, they have their own life now. They're putting together. And it's not that they won't miss me and that stuff, but Sarah was trying to, build a life with me, and it's falling apart.
Do you think that if she could go back, knowing what she knows now,
Well, she
that
would
she
stay.
would she have traded that?
No, yeah, you know the reasons that we're together are still true. So she wouldn't. I know she wouldn't. Me to start over again. She'd want to do the same thing. It's just it's it's difficult to see the promises that are you expect that we would have that life together, and we're not going to make it. You know, I It's the piece that hurts the most for me.
What are you grateful for in these moments?
We'll say it's very difficult to go through uh, cancer this way, but it's nice that it gives you a chance to say thank you to people. You Obviously to Sarah and to the minions, but also to my friends and my family. And it's nice to have the chance to say thank you because, like I said, as Sarah said, I'm not the most best at saying thank you or you know asking for help or those kind of things. The emotional things aren't really my thing. But I've gotten much better at it in the last year and a half. Uh, so it's super important to me that I've gotten the opportunity to say thank you. Glad that I didn't just get hit by a bus or something. I gotta say thank you to Sarah, to the vineyard. And I got to say things to make sure that they get her heard. You know, which is a blessing that I don't think most people would understand until you're in that position. Yeah. A lot of people have had impact in my life. My parents were amazing. I got along great with them. There are a few points here and there, but I wouldn't say that was anything that wasn't normal for a teenager. My brother was, he was a great brother. We got along great. Didn't always have a lot of interests together, but that's still, when I look at other brothers who dislike us, and like I never had that. I always had one that was supportive. I like that. I said thinking about the minions, and it was the adventure was not always smooth. Obviously when it became just the three of us, but that was probably one of the highlights in my life was switching from just being a parent to being a friend with them and going on that adventure. And obviously with it's not a lot of time, but Sarah was just amazing. I wish I had better understood what I had. So thank you to all of them. I really have enjoyed my life. It was fun. Sorry, I got all teary at the end.
You're in good company. You're in good company, my friend.
There's tons of the kids probably know all my stories at this point. Lots of silly things like that, adventures. That's it's interesting. I wouldn't have put it together the way we did, but I think it's right about looking in for adventures and being really curious and understanding the world and stuff. That's totally what our story really is. So, it, it was the big turning points in life that really kind of changed my perspective and kind of helped. One of the things we said, or I didn't say earlier, I never mentioned robots, but robots is like my whole thing.
Yeah.
My whole life I've been building robots, even as a kid. Um, always a theme. Obviously, my kids could tell you that for sure. Um, but caring, I think there was a point where that's what I thought I was about, and then I learned that you can be more than one. You don't have to just be an engineer building robots or something. You can also be a father or husband. And the further this has gone on, the more the, the further life goes along, the more I want both, all of that stuff to be together as one thing. Um, but then as the cancer has gone along, you know, it's hard to let go of the engineering and stuff. It's very me. But, when you have time, when you only have a small amount of time, I don't want to build a robot. I want to, you know, say goodbye.
Yeah. It's the people around you that becomes the more important part.
It is. I mean, I think both are important. I have a lot of time to think about over the last year. That you know, I I can't not be an engineer
Yeah.
because that's me.
It's just who you are. Right?
But when you're out of time, you realize you don't have enough time to build another chair,
Yeah.
right? And you need to make sure that you said everything that needs to be said.
Do you feel like you've said everything that needs to be said?
Um, I have, I still, obviously, I'm a dad, so there's little things here and there where I'm like, oh yeah, and by the way, and
Yeah.
little things that, I make sure, I want to make sure that, thinking about Sarah, really concerned about, her being okay. So there's lots of things that I want to cover still, and any wisdom that I can give her to make life easier. That's really important to me at this point. But it's not it's not the big things, you know. Sarah knows how I feel. Minions have they know how I feel. They know how important they are. Uh, but it's just like I said, at this point, not I'm pretty much done being an engineer. Now I'm just trying to finish being, a dad and a husband. I have a happy life. I had a happy life. Like, I did what I wanted to do, or at that time, I liked what was going on.